I'm here with Chad Brown. He just finished a hearty breakfast of...
Oatmeal and some scrambled eggs.
That's how you do it before a big tournament like this, right?
That's one of the good choices. Get a little protein, get your oatmeal in there, a little fruit, and you're ready to go.
Now, you had a fun couple of days teaching boot camp. You had a lot of people approach you, ask you questions. You were even playing in a sit and go.
Right.
As a participant, giving people pointers and showing your cards. I wish I was at that table.
Well, I think there's a prize for winning the sit and go, but I think really this is what I would call on-the-job training. They're actually they got a couple of days under their belt from instruction from all the pros, and now here they're in action, and at each table is a pro, and this is where they could get on-the-job training, where we're making decisions, and there are certain things that are obvious. For example, if someone, and this is something that happened at the table, and I pointed this out, I wasn't in the hand, but there were two people that limped in the pot, and a person who wanted to raise in position raised 3 times the big blind. Now, that's a mistake. If what I pointed out is I said, look, if you normally raise 3 times the big blind and there are 2 people that limp, add those 2 limpers into the factor and add that to your raise. So in other words, if the blinds are 50 and 100 and you normally raise 300, there's 2 limpers, you make it 500.
Okay. So you think that's the biggest thing that people need to understand is how much to raise a pot? Because earlier we were talking and you mentioned that someone didn't raise enough.
Well, there was another hand where I was in the big blind and everyone folded to the small blind, and the blinds were 50, 100, so I'm in for 100, and the small blind decided to raise, and he made it 200 total, only costing me 100. Now, I didn't even look at my card yet, so I said, 100? Like, making it obvious, like, you're making a mistake. So I said, I didn't even look at my cards, I called blind. And the table, of course, are all laughing.
Yeah.
They're all enjoying this, and I was basically doing this to point out a strategy and what's inappropriate, what's appropriate. So the flop came ace-6 with 2 hearts, and now the player in the small blind checks. So I know either he's got nothing or he's got 3 aces, a slow player. But it doesn't matter to me. It cost us both 200 each pre-flop. There's 400 in the pot. So I said, I'll tell you what, I'm not going to look at my cards. I'll bet 200 blind. And the table's just having a ball with this. They're all laughing. And the guy's like actually nervous. He doesn't know what to do. You bet 200 blind. Did you look at... He told me afterwards, he says, I'm not sure if you really looked at your cards or you didn't. He thought for like 5 minutes. This is a $200 bet. And I'm saying, I said, look, let me give you a little advice. If you have 4 aces, just call.
Yeah.
He wound up pushing all in, and I didn't look at my cards, and I said, well, if I have I had them covered, and I was getting the right price if I had a flush draw, so I said, well, if I have a flush, I'll call. Obviously, if I have an ace, I'll call. So the first card was a king of hearts, and I flashed everyone, oh, it's a king of hearts, and I go, ooh, And I said,
very entertaining table over there.
So the second card was a 5 of diamonds, and I showed my hand, and then I explained that, you should never just raise that amount. Even if you have aces, unless I didn't go into this with the table, there is a time where with aces you may just raise the minimum heads up, and that's against someone who's a bad player, who that if they hit any pair, they can't make a laydown. They wouldn't perceive that you slow played your aces by just making a minimum raise.
We all want to know, did you win the sit and go?
No, I didn't try to win the sit and go, frankly. I didn't really want...
It was a learning lesson for everyone.
Yeah, I was there to really help all the students at the table. They were, like I said, they're on the job. I was having a little fun with them, trying to make them feel relaxed. And, like I said, even hands that I'm not in, I can see things that they're doing that are incorrect and point them out. And I can see they appreciated that.
Now, your biggest piece of advice that you gave, I introduced you a couple days ago.
Right.
You gave a speech to everyone. What would you say everyone needs to know going into this tournament today? Good morning, Kenna.
Don't eat bacon. No. Don't eat bacon. That's
he ate oatmeal and eggs. Would you suggest
just try that little bite right there. Come on, that's good.
Thanks.
Hey, have a good game.
That was the best piece of bacon I've ever had. Thank you.
Cowboy Kenna James.
I think he made it himself.
Oh, all right. Well, then in that case, that's no beef.
I couldn't turn it down.
All right.
My biggest piece of advice.
My biggest piece of, in the opening of this boot camp, the question was, what advice would you give, not knowing what their skill level was, someone you were staking in a major event, and I gave a bunch of different bullet points, but one of them is that in these big events that there's a lot of bad players. A lot of people see poker on TV and they're basically seeing the final table, and they're seeing a lot of the top pros make incredible big bluffs. So I think the perception for a lot of people is that for me to be good, I have to be able to show that I could bluff. So one of the big pieces of advice is, and all the top pros have all adjusted their games after the big fields at the World Series main event, to realize that that's not the correct strategy in the early rounds.
Okay.
Because bad players don't make laydowns. So you don't want to put your stack at risk trying to make a big bluff when it's only going to work against someone who understands the game well. So one of my big pieces of advice is, don't go in with the idea in the first, in the early rounds trying to bluff people out. Play solid poker. When you have a hand, bet it. If you don't have a hand, look to be able to make your laydowns.
And you're going to be taking your own advice, because you're going to be in a tournament that's unlike any other tournament that you usually play on the World Poker Tour, where you're playing against some people who have, very little knowledge until now about poker.
Right.
So.
Oh, no question about it. Yeah, right. No, the right strategy in the early rounds of this is not to try to outplay people, and by putting in big bets when they have middle pair and you have a straight draw with one card to go. Don't try and outplay them, because a big percentage of these people won't lay down the second pair.
Yeah. Well, Chad, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Get in there and play.
All right.
Thank you.